Welcome to the Edition Financial webinar, Drive Off with a Deal, a Roadmap to Smart Auto Buying. Our speakers tonight, John Langlois and Nicole Kennedy, are sharing their expertise from our consumer lending department. Go ahead and type your questions in the chat box at any time, and we will answer them during our Q&A session towards the end of the presentation. And now I'll hand it over to John.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We wanted to try to talk with you guys a little bit about the best practices and some tips and tricks on how to purchase a vehicle. Nicole and I have 25 years experience in the auto business. So we felt like we would be able to try to give you guys some good hints on the next time you'd go to purchase a vehicle. So we're going to start with our first slide, and our first slide just going to kind of outline the things that we're doing tonight: purchasing your next vehicle, credit scores, budgeting, car shopping considerations, new, used, and lease cars, which one you want to purchase, and then your financing. And we'll go ahead and dive right in on purchasing your next vehicle and some things that you're going to want to think about as you're doing that. First and foremost, understanding your credit is a key point, because if you are financing a vehicle, you are going to want to have the best credit score you can possibly have, and understanding your credit will allow you to do so. You've got some things to consider, like how much debt you have and how many different types of trades you have on your credit. And we'll be going into that a little bit further. Your budgeting is another item that you want to make sure that you're not going out and purchasing a vehicle that's going to be more expensive than you can afford. Always keeping in mind you've got insurance, your monthly bills, things like that. So you want to make sure you know what you're doing with your budgets. Do you want to go new or used or lease? Those are going to be another thing that we're going to be talking about and trying to give you a insight on what exactly the differences are between those. We talked about the financing. What your credit rating is going to kind of dictate what your interest rate is going to be. And then protecting your investment, things like gap, warranty, and products and whatnot. Nicole, you want to explain what gap is?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening,
I think that's
everyone.
important.
I hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, John is 100% right on that. Gap is an awesome tool to protect your investment. What gap is, for example, say you've bought your car and unfortunately you've gotten into a car accident, it's totaled, somebody has stolen your vehicle, and now you owe X amount of money on your car, but unfortunately the value is less than what you owe. And that is when gap insurance comes into play. It steps in and it covers the cost of the vehicle for you. And it definitely is a really, really good tool to have for insurance purposes.
And when you talk about going to get gap, a lot of dealers will sell that to you. It is a vital tool to be able to protect yourself, because no one knows if we're going to get into an accident. And when I say accident, we mean total loss.
Correct.
Where the value of the vehicle is no longer a issue. Mm-hmm. It's now what the insurance company is going to pay versus what you owe on the vehicle. Right. And that gap, as it states, covers the gap between what's owed and what the insurance company paid.
Yep. So, I think everybody's been here. Where do I start? What's the process? I've been here many a times myself. I think that the best place to start really is by taking your time and really just doing the research. Maybe making a list of what is really important to you, comparing prices from different sources, making sure that once you've definitely decided on a unit or a model, you've got the best knowledge that you can on your own on what you're interested in, whether that's the pricing or the features, and really kind of go from there. What do you think, John?
Well, and I'll touch on that. Knowing the trade value of your vehicle, I like to break it down when I'm talking to families and friends. I break it down into three really key components. And it might be two if you're not trading a vehicle in, but we'll go over them. It's the price you're going to buy the car for comes into play. You can do your research online. This is step one, really, of looking into a vehicle. Do a lot of research online. Look at several different websites, separate dealers to see who's got the better price. It might be listed on there as such, but you never know. You might be able to work some kind of deal with them based off of the price that's on the internet. But that's step number one, is knowing the price. Step number two, know what your trade value is. If you do have a trade-in, a lot of times we have folks that have a balance remaining on their trade. You've got to know what your balance is and what the car is worth, because you're either going to go into that next car purchase with negative or positive equity into that vehicle. Now, with negative equity, obviously, that's going to increase the price of what you have to borrow for the next car. So it's really important that you know. I'll give you examples of CarMax. They offer a 7-day letter that they will give you. If you take your car in, they can look at it, assess it, tell you they'll buy it for such amount. That way, it gives you a really good idea of what exactly your car is going to be worth when you go actually to sell it. There's also Edmunds.com is another one. KellyBlueBook.com is another one where you can go in and you can type in your information. Some of these websites will ask you, do you have a clean? Do you have a rough? Do you have a super rough? Do you have a super clean? I would always go on maybe 2 levels less than what you think it is. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
You want to make sure that you're being honest when you're answering that question, because it could make a difference of $1,000, $2,000.
Absolutely.
But then you want to approximate your rate based off of your credit score, and that's number 3. So we're talking price, knowing the value of your trade and what you owe, and the approximate rate that you're going to be getting based off the credit score, which you should have already known before you began working on this. But if you do know these things, it gives you an opportunity to ballpark payment,
right?
Which goes back to our budgeting conversation, because when you do a ballpark, you're going to know how much approximately it's going to be. And you might want to give yourself a $50 buffer, $100 buffer, if you can afford that, to make sure that you're, going into the dealership with the right mindset of what you're going to be looking at. There's a few things when talking about trying to ballpark, and there are tons of online rate calculators that you can plug in term. You can plug in the rate that you think you'll be around. Again, give yourself a little cushion there. What kind of payment or what kind of amount finance you're going to be looking at. What I would recommend are these 4 key components: the price of the car that you're paying for, the negative or positive equity that you have, which obviously would dictate the price. So if you owe $20,000 for the new car, but you have negative equity of $2,000, you're technically trying to borrow $22,000.
Correct.
The tax for that car, depending on the county you live in, 6.5%, 7%. Make sure you add that to that price. So instead of $22,000, now you would have your tax on top of that. I always recommend for additional fees, because dealers do have title work, tag work that they have to do, along with their dealer fee. And these are things that I always tell all my family and friends: make sure you put another $1,500. So it's $2,200 plus the tax plus the $1,500. We'll give you a really good estimate about where you're going to be when you go in to purchase the car. It's important because you go in and you have the right mindset when you go in there. There's also a final thing, which is back-end products. They're referred to as back-end products, but you may know them as gap and warranty, things like that. So these are things that you really want to look at. We're going to talk about the credit score being, again, one of the most important things when you're trying to purchase a vehicle. It's a real indicator of the rate that you're going to get. The lower the score, the higher the rate, and vice versa. So it's really important that you look into this. When we talk about looking into it, there are many different alternatives to be able to get your credit score. But some of the places Nicole and I are going to mention to you, we've got Credit Karma. Credit Karma is a big one. I use that religiously. Now, Credit Karma does not tell you exactly what your score is, but it gives you a really good ballpark to know what your score is kind of looking like. Another one is Addition Financial. I just realized the other day, I went into my account, I looked down at the bottom, and it says this average score in my area. I clicked on that and it gave me my actual score at that moment. So these are things that you can consider. Do you have any others that you could offer, Nicole?
Yeah, absolutely. And those are both really great places to check for your score. Another one is maybe a loan statement. If you have a credit card and you get monthly papered statements sometimes, and a lot of the times you can get a lot of really great information off of that. Not only your score, but how much utilization you're using. There's also annualcreditreport.com. So everybody is entitled every 12 months to a credit report. And what you do is you have to go to the website, you've got to register, and they'll send you that report. I recently also found out that if you create a myequifax.com account, you can get up to 6 free a year.
Wow.
Don't quote me exact on that, but
worth looking into.
Right. It's definitely something worth looking into, especially when you are trying to really get a better idea of where you stand for credit, because it is such a huge factor in how your purchasing of a vehicle is going to go.
And you want to keep an eye on fluctuation of your credit score.
Yep.
So if you see it go up, there might be something that maybe had lifted that you didn't realize was coming off. Or if you see it go down, there might have been something added that should not have been added. And you really want to make sure you're watching that, because that is going to be a big factor when it comes to buying a car. And we'll break down credit scores. Credit scores are typically by lenders looked at in a variety of ways, but the main key components are the ones you see on your screen. It starts with the payment history. If you have any delinquencies, they're going to kill your score. The weight of these are 35% of the weight goes to payment history. So extremely important that you make your payments on time. It also indicates the length that you've been paying on them. Payment history meaning not only that you paid on time, but you have a certain amount of months. Say in this slide, we've got 24. You've also got the amount you owe that can come into play. What do you think? I think credit cards sorry, not credit cards, but credit utilization is about 30% is the preferred 30%. So we want to try to keep our credit utilization, meaning if you owe $1,000, not going over that 30% mark of that $1,000 on each card. And of course, that card could be 20,000, but you got to try to keep it below 30% total utilization. Again, the length of credit history relates to the payment history, but again, we could be talking about 5 years in the credit bureau versus 1 year in the credit bureau, and your score will dramatically change because of the 5 years.
Absolutely.
The types of credit that you have, there are several types. I'll name a few. You've got revolving credit with your credit cards, typically. You've got installment credit with a car loan, a mortgage. So there's just a couple of types of credit that you can have. And then new credit. A lot of lenders look when they're trying to decide whether or not to lend to you, how much new stuff have you brought onto your life?
Right. That's a big one too.
And does your debt to income really go into how much you've brought into your credit recently? Because if you increased a lot of debt all of a sudden, it could be an indicator of risk and might be a little bit less likely to be able to get financing. Again, this kind of goes into what I was discussing. Your payment history, always paying on time, paying at least the minimum, or do you pay the what you can? Right. More than you can. What do you pay?
Oh,
we all pay what we can.
Right.
So, and basically, obviously, the minimum is going to be the best, or at least something that you can do. But if you can pay more, I always try to pay my credit card down to the zero.
Absolutely.
And then reuse it, and then down to the zero.
Yep.
So that's a big part of it. How much you owe. Do you have a lot of credit cards, loans, credits, stores credits? I don't have any store credits.
I don't know, maybe a couple of Macy's.
Yeah, there you go.
Body Works. No.
And then what percentage of that you're using? You've got the have you been using your credit for 10 weeks or 10 years? I just discuss that. Do you have a variety of credit types? Again, the revolving, the installment, et cetera. And then have you applied for any new lines of credit? And these are very, I felt the need to put 2 slides in here because that really gives you a breakdown of exactly what these creditors are going to look at and weigh the heaviest on when we talk about credit score.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, having that little bit of knowledge is key, especially when you are, say, requesting that credit report, that free annual report, and you're able to sit there and look through, oh, wow, I'm using more than 50% on my Macy's card, but I'm not on this one, and maybe, you can take a couple of months and really work on getting a new history going so that it looks more appealing for the lender.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of to wrap right into it, and I know I'm sure we've all seen, these terms: excellent, very good, good, fair, bad. I know I've seen them once or twice on a commercial when people are, say on Credit Karma on their phone, and the commercial is really about going from a fair to an excellent or whatever. So, the lower the score, the greater the risk is for the lender. So I think it's a great chart just to understand when somebody's saying, oh, you've got good credit, and what they're meaning by that, where your 3 digits really lie.
Right.
So, this is a good mental snapshot. You'll see these words forever and ever and ever. So it's a good tool to really know what they mean when they say, oh, you've got bad credit, or you've got excellent credit, or you've got good, very good, and wherever you really lie on that chart.
For me, just knowing the 850 was the highest and 300 is the lowest.
Right.
And knowing I'll probably never get to 850 and certainly hope never get to 300.
Don't say never.
But knowing that if I'm in that middle range, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be.
And I've been on both ends of that spectrum, so it's not uncommon to be on either end of the spectrum.
Right.
It's all about maintaining it for a period of time to be able to get your score up and get your better financing.
Correct. Yeah.
And we'll roll right into the next slide, which is for Nicole.
Yeah. So when we're talking about credit report, these are the 3 main bureaus that we typically use. We've got Equifax, we've got Experian, we've got TransUnion. I know I touched base a little bit, especially on the Equifax one, where I said you could go to the website, make an account, and get free reports. But this ideally is what each lender uses, and what the dealership uses. Maybe one might use Equifax, one uses TransUnion, but these are the 3 main bureaus that are determining what your score is.
All right, great. So to sum up, if you're planning to get a loan or a lease, having a good score is important. Your score is going to be it's predictive, so it's going to tell the lender whether you can or cannot pay. And then it can affect the interest rate that you have based on if you're going to be financing. And hopefully you'll be able to do that with the lowest rate possible so you can get the car you want every time.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll move on to budgeting. So I've worked in a lot of areas throughout my career, and one of them was our collections department. And I really hold a lot of value into budgeting, and I've helped many, many people be able to manage their expenses, to be able to make their payments, to be able to keep their car and keep the things that they love, the things that they purchased. I think this is a very important slide to throw in because you do have to know how much you can afford every time you purchase a car. Knowing your net family income, if you're combining your income with your spouse or your significant other, it's important that you understand what each of you are making so you can create that budget. And of course, knowing the expenses comes along with that. I personally, and I know at the very end, we've got to develop a yearly budget, but I really focus on the make one a month budget. Everyone goes into a car deal, at least in my experience, and you can correct me if you've heard something different, but everybody goes into a car buying experience with how much is my monthly payment?
Right.
It's not so much about how much is the car. If it's $40,000 car, oh my gosh, it's a $40,000 car. Or is it a $400 payment?
Right.
Can I afford $400? If I go into it knowing I'm going to spend $400 and I'm right at $400, typically it's not going to matter as much about whether or not that car was $40,000 or $60,000. You're going to be more worried about what that monthly payment is. So that's why I really hit way heavy on the monthly budget. So know what you're willing to spend based off the monthly budget and put that car payment in there. Don't forget to put insurance in, because as financing a new car, you have to be able to supply insurance for that vehicle. And then tracking your expenses and income and evaluating your spending choices, I think, kind of go together. You have to know what you can and can't afford. I would love to have a Mustang, but I've got a Camry, So, and then continuing to redefine your budget, refine. But these are things that will help you. I did touch on a little bit of this, but what spending habits are you seeing? How much do you spend in groceries a month or gas? A lot of people can say, okay, I don't really drive this car anytime other than going to work. So on a weekly basis, I spend this much in gas. Purchases, savings, obviously everybody wants to put some money away. Highly recommend it. $20, $10 even. But you have to add that into your spending habits or patterns. Deciding what to purchase. Again, we talked about that, knowing what you can afford. Again, the insurance, don't forget that. And then what factors influence your purchasing decision. Again, knowing about your budget will help you in those. And we're going to go right on to car shopping considerations.
Yeah, so this one, once again, determining your wants and your needs. I think I struggle with this one on a daily basis when I look at my Amazon account. Another thing is, what do you really need out of this car? What safety features do you need? How's how is it on gas mileage? Is the value of the car going to hold up? There's so many things that, really can tie into all of, what you want and what you need out of this car. Back to the budget again. The budget is huge. I always say, a realistic budget. What can you truly afford? Where are your monthly finances lying? And John mentioned it already, but I'm going to mention again, don't forget about your car insurance payment, your monthly car insurance payment. Are you a month-to-month payer? Are you a annual? Are you every 6 months? Definitely don't forget to put that payment into your monthly budget. Also, a down payment, or, are you willing to put money down? Can you put money down? How much money can you put down? Definitely all something to think of, when and if you're ready to buy a car.
And, one other thing that wasn't on here, but I like the idea to consider, especially here in Orlando, the tolls.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big factor.
For sure.
So, and I have an expense monthly that I have to budget for. So that's another expense that you really want to consider when you're looking at what you can afford for this vehicle. All right, great, Nicole. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So there's been a lot of talk about car buying during COVID. And we felt the need to bring this up today because, there are some changes at the dealerships. We're seeing it on a day-to-day basis. So we wanted to make sure we kind of highlighted a few key points. There's other changes. You can see it's extremely sanitized. They've got glass shields in front of their desks when they're talking with you. Some dealerships I've seen where they have the X shape on their table, so you can go in and feel comfortable that you're not really actually being in front of someone.
Right.
But there are a lot of other options, and dealers are putting a lot of their cars online. They're allowing a lot, if not all, some for sure, of the negotiation and closing of the deal to be done through phone calls and message tools. So not all dealers offer as much as some others, but it is an option for you. They're definitely moving a lot to electronic signatures. This is a big topic I hear all over the place. They're really wanting to start not having you have to pick up a pen and sign like we used to on paper
Right.
contracts. They really want everything to be done through the computer. It allows them to print something that hasn't been touched by multiple parties and utilize it the way they need to. Sending us a contract, if we're in the one that is getting the application, we would get that contract and it would be less paper to have to really worry about.
Yeah, I'd say that they're really, trying their best to evolve to the times and make everybody feel safe and secure. And, it's definitely nice to know and hear that for sure.
They're doing a really good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's surprising how much they're going above and beyond to make sure that, you're feeling safe to walk into a dealership.
I've been very impressed. Yep.
This next one is a new one to me, and I'm gonna say it, but say it loosely. You can ask. I don't know that all dealers are really getting into this, but we figured we'd throw it in there. It's the contactless test drive, and it's not that you don't actually touch the car. I wish it was like that. Can't put you in a bubble and say, here you go. But
on the street,
right? Hey, maybe in a Tesla.
You never know.
But ask about the contactless test drives. They're going to come to your house in some cases, and not all dealers are offering this, so beware of that. But they come to your house or wherever your place of choosing is to allow you to test drive. They'll wipe down the vehicle, make sure everything's nice and clean for you. You can get in, test drive, and I know that they'll do this at the dealerships as well.
Correct.
So
yeah,
that part of it definitely will happen. But as far as off-site, they're definitely there's some dealers that are going to offer that. And then checking to see if the dealer will deliver to your door. You could do all the paperwork at the dealership. They could have somebody drop it off for you. They'll do the same thing, clean it out, make sure everything's good. So just kind of look into those things and see what your options are. But overall, I think they're doing a really good job of making sure they keep everybody safe. Absolutely. The last thing they want, just like any business, is for a customer to walk in and feel like there's not a safety net for them.
Right.
So expect to see hand sanitizer, masks, and everything else. All right, moving on.
All right. So this is for the fun stuff. Are we looking for a new car? Are we looking for a used car? Are we trying to get more information on leasing a car? What is the best for you? New cars. So here we go. I love a new car for this one thing more than the others is the new car smell. And it doesn't stay there forever, but when it's there, it is good, it is clean, it is fresh. And you know what? I want everybody to poke their head in my car and so I can say, do you smell it? Do you smell the new car smell?
I've never seen them be able to duplicate that smell.
Oh, no, I've tried. I've bought the air fresheners.
The air freshener's not it.
It's never the same, on top of that, new cars are typically easier to get your hands on, right?
Yeah.
They come every year, they're stocked up on the lot. It's kind of like you're going to the ice cream truck. You want strawberry, you want vanilla, cookie dough. You get to be a little bit more customizable because they are there. Another thing that's great about new cars is they're usually covered by the dealer or manufacturer on warranties, maintenance, all that good stuff that, you really want to know that, oh man, if this happens, I can bring it right back to you and you can fix it. Absolutely. I know I do. Overall in all, a new car is a great way to go. Some disadvantages for some people is that a new car can be expensive. They're these brand new models, never been seen before, and then you got it. It's in your driveway, it's under your carport. So you do pay a little bit for that. That's for sure. Unfortunately, the next year another one's going to come out. So what you just paid top dollar for in some cases isn't going to be as much, a year later. So those are all the things that you really need to think about. Is a new car really best for me?
And make sure when you are looking for a car, even though they are more expensive on the new cars, a lot of manufacturers offer the rebates.
Yes.
So
yep.
Don't be afraid to ask,
Absolutely.
Hey, is there a rebate on this? No, the rebates are only going to come on new cars. So please don't forget that. But on a used car, you won't get a rebate. But the manufacturers do have incentive to the dealer to say, hey, sell my product.
Yeah.
Let us give you another $1,000 to give to the customer to be able to get this done.
Yeah. John makes a really valid point there. That is something that, more than none is typically offered, excuse me. And that can really be a huge key factor of going new or used. Some of those rebates really can add up and be a really, really nice chunk of money that you're saving.
Sure.
Really.
It almost acts as a down payment. So
absolutely.
Don't be afraid to ask. And different makes and models have different rebates. Some have none. The higher desirable cars are going to have a lot of the higher desirable cars are not going to have as good of a rebate as a car that might be selling more, sparingly.
Right.
So, good points.
Yep. So a used car, I've bought new and I've bought used, both of which have been great experiences honestly. So once again, this is what is best for you. Used cars are great because they're typically, less expensive. You're not having to, you don't get that new car smell, but sometimes that's not everything.
New car potpourri.
Yeah, save me. Maybe one day they'll figure it out and we won't, we'll all have that smell at our fingertips. Sometimes your insurance isn't going to cost as much on a new car. It's going to depreciate less because it's already depreciated a little bit. Some of which are going to have maintenance, some of which aren't. That's going to be one of the things that you definitely need to do your research on.
You want to talk about, an advantage when buying a used car. We've all probably heard, and if you haven't, CPO and what that means. Are you familiar with what CPO is?
Certified
and can you tell our
pre-owned.
Certified pre-owned? And what that is if they get a car in, they're going to check the brake pads, they're going to check the tires, they're going to check a lot of various things. Each CPO is going to have a little bit different qualification. But if they do meet all those standards, they can stamp CPO on that vehicle. And now you know that the car has been through a screening that, costs a little extra, but gives you a little bit more peace of mind. So when shopping for used cars, you can also look into stuff like that. It will be a little bit more expensive, not by much, but, for peace of mind, I think there's a small cost.
Definitely worth it. I would agree. To know that, to know that you're safe, to know that, everything under the hood is working as it should be. Absolutely.
I really like the fact that, used cars don't depreciate as much.
Right.
When you drive off the lot with a brand new car, it might go down. It could go anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 to $2,000
right.
to $4,000.
You never know.
You don't know. So it a lot depends on what the market's doing at that time.
Right.
Then we get into leased vehicles, and this can be an option for you. Leasing a car, you get the luxury of being able to get that new car and that new car smell without having to worry about keeping that car and any kind of damage that will come on, or over the next 3-4 years, you might say, okay, I'm ready for a new one.
Right. If you're one of those, oops, sorry, Tom.
Go ahead.
If you're one of those people who love having a new car every couple of years, then, this might be the thing for you. Absolutely.
And realistically, they have great incentive as far as offering low payments on this.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people, I know we were talking to somebody recently that said that, they've had a car for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
They want to keep that car till it drives to the ground.
Right.
And therefore, they're eliminating to have to make a monthly payment that will allow them to buy other things. Whereas I'm stuck in a car because, I want a new car.
Right. And another thing, if you are, in the market to lease, make sure you ask about your mileage and, what the cost is going to be. Say if you have an allotted amount of mileage per year, once you turn that lease in and say you've gone over that, how much is that going to come out of pocket for you? Keep in mind, you're turning it in at the end of the year, and you got to kind of stay within the contract that you guys decide on.
It is difficult, and I will point out the biggest one I would say on the disadvantages is difficult to get out of a lease if something were to happen. And that is something that you really have to consider if you are doing a lease. So just make sure you've considered that part of it in the event some kind of life change might happen to you. All right, on to the financing, what we specialize in.
That's us.
So some things to think about with financing are outlined here. And These are just a few of the items. Some of these pertain to maybe not having the best credit. So we wanted to kind of, throw it out there that you're not just stuck. Sometimes you can get it. Sometimes you can get that loan. If your application's denied, maybe, father, mother, even sometimes the children, people have bad credit, not just because they don't pay payments.
Right.
It's because they have had a trouble in their life. With COVID going on right now, it's, we've had how many times you turn on the TV, you see people losing their jobs or furloughed, and that's something that it's not an embarrassing thing because it's so frequent, and maybe folks don't quite understand that, but it is a real thing and can happen. Obviously, the goal is to try to build your credit up, not down. So when you do make a late payment or you do have credit problems, your scores go down, therefore having to pay higher interest, maybe not getting the car that you want. So sometimes you can ask somebody to help you out to be able to, get you back on your feet. You can work on improving your score. There's ways to do that. The average trade line stays on your credit for 7 years. If 6 years ago or close to 7, that you defaulted on a credit card, that credit card will go off in 7 years. But check your credit at that 7-year mark to make sure that card gets removed.
Right.
And instantly your scores will go up.
Absolutely.
If you paid everything else and that one credit card's still hanging on there, and I'm sure a lot of folks can attest to this, your score will immediately increase. Those are little things that you can do to try to, look at your credit score, pay down your debts. Another one. See what financing your credit union or bank offers. We love to have our people come back to us. We appreciate them coming back to us, and we have lots of different variety of rates and terms that we can offer. 0% financing isn't always the best deal. Now, this is a funny one because sometimes people think, oh my gosh, that's 0%.
Right.
But we talked about, and we've seen a lot of manufacturers offering 0%, 84 months. Right. Getting your mindset into 0% walking into the door.
It sounds nice.
Right. It does. We've all seen the commercials.
Oh, yeah.
As much as we've been home and as many car commercials have been out there. So the idea with that is to get you in the door. But at a 0% financing, we did talk about rebates, and sometimes doing the 0%, you may forfeit the rebate, which eliminates how much money down you're getting.
Right.
So when a manufacturer says 0%, they might say, well, if you take the rate though, we might actually give you $3,000 down. Well, then you have to decide how much is my interest calculation at 3.5% or 4%. And how much would I be losing if I was to take the 0%? So if your interest calculation is less than $3,000, you're better off taking the rate because you're still going to make money on that deal.
Right.
And then check the dealerships for any kind of, special sales. There's a lot of different, any holiday that we go through,
4th of July, Labor Day, Christmas,
Memorial,
all of them. Yep.
End of the year. Do you want to touch on, end of the year models and the new year coming in, the 20s versus the 21s?
Yeah, absolutely. So, getting closer to the new year, we see definitely a big push in getting those, what we would now consider new 2020s off the lot so that they can replenish with the 2021s. So there's always, typically is going to be, a nice deal sitting around those cars because they've got to bring the new models in.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I was going with. They're looking hard to get rid of their old model. It's like having the new shiny thing go on the lot versus the thing that has already been out for a while. A lot of people have. We want to get rid of that. So you might find some deals when you look at different year models. They do come out as early as June that I've seen, maybe even earlier. I'm not 100% on that, but you can see some 2021s right now.
Absolutely.
And we're in August. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking for a vehicle. You may end up being able to get a better deal on an older model instead of the brand new shiny thing, even though you're getting a new car.
Absolutely.
The last thing I wanted to go over on this, and I think I might have put it in the wrong spot, but I'm going to go over it anyway, is make sure you know what you're signing, before. Make sure you understand all aspects. Don't be afraid to ask again if you have a confusion on something. Check your payment. Make sure the payment's what you were saying, what you expected to be, and just understand your loan and what you're doing with it.
Take your time. There's no rush.
Yeah.
Ask all the questions, even if you think they're silly. They're not.
Always remember, this is a business transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I tell my friends and family is make sure you go into it as such.
Right.
There's going to be somebody that wants to sell you the car as high as they can go, and you're going to be, I want you to sell it to me as low as you can go. You have to know that somewhere in the middle you guys can meet and both be happy. So when you go into it as a business transaction. Don't get frustrated. Try not to get frustrated to, any kind of offers they're giving. If you're not happy, you can always walk away, but just make sure that you're trying, to negotiate what you think is fair, which hopefully we're helping do right now.
I hope so.
And this is kind of what I was going over this next slide, which is, the things about looking for the best deal. You can ask around, you can ask a couple different dealers. You can work with a dealer to find, when their next sale is, when their next special event might be. And these are all things because if a dealer is selling a lot of cars, they're more likely to give you a discount on a car. Not always going to be the case. I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but they are likely to give you a better deal because they're able to sell so many as opposed to not being able to sell too many cars.
Right.
When they're not selling very many cars, it's less likely you're going to get a better deal. So a lot of times that's why those sales are so big and why they promote them so much.
Absolutely. Especially going back to, the new models coming in, call the dealer. Hey, are there going to be any upcoming, deal specials on the 2020s, as the 21s are coming in? There's, sometimes you just got to do a little bit of research and ask the questions. They'll tell you. They'll always tell you.
Dealers want to work with you.
They do. And they want to sell the car. Oh,
good
absolutely.
Point. All right. We talked about protecting your investment, Nicole. So I'll kind of turn this over to you.
Yeah. So we went over GAP a little bit in the front of this. And once again, I think GAP is a really, really, really important thing to ideally protect what you're about to invest your money into. You're doing all this hard work, you're getting your credit up, you're doing your budget, you've made your list of everything you want and you need. And, it would be awful to then total that and not have any protection against it. So, GAP is just, to me, it's a non-negotiable. It's something that when I make my list, it is always going to be on there for sure.
Yeah, I recommend that a lot too.
Yeah, really.
I'll back that up 100%.
And you know what, I think the dealer would agree with us that it's definitely, John and I and our whole, I'd say our whole department have seen this come into play way more than once,
Yeah. You may want to be aware if you don't owe very much for the car, you put a large sum of money down, you may not need GAP coverage.
Right.
And most dealers aren't going to sell it to you, but
right.
It's when you owe a lot more or at least as much as what the car is worth, because you'd be surprised how much the insurance companies are going to pay for that car once you leave the lot.
Right. Absolutely. Here we go on, credit, life, and disability insurance. Not every dealer is going to offer this. If you pass away and now you're left over with this loan, very unfortunate. But like here, we at Addition do offer it, and it is something that you can add on after the fact of doing the loan with the dealership. You do have to follow certain guidelines and procedures, but yeah,
definitely something you can get.
Definitely something to look into. Just to further protect yourself and what you're investing your money into. Warranty, extended warranty. I remember thinking the first time I bought my car and I was co-signing with my dad, and I'm like, Dad, what is all of this? What exactly do I need this? Do I not need this? There's different type of warranties, and this is typically something that you'll go over with the finance manager. And ask all the questions. What does bumper to bumper warranty mean? What does powertrain warranty mean? Does that mean that if my engine blows up that it's going to be fixed? Or does that mean that if my transmission goes, or, what happens if my navigation shuts off in the middle of nowhere? Who's going to fix that? So, warranty is another one of those things that, I spend a lot of time in my car. A lot of people do. And it's nice to know that if something goes wrong, I'm going to know where to take it and what it's going to include. So, these are all things that I think are really major, factors in protecting your investment.
It's going to give you a good peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will share a scenario that happened to me when I know the person that I was buying from because we work in this business, but he had offered me a tire and wheel product, which I said no to. 3 months down the road, I had 2 flat tires and it cost me double what the product that he was offering would have covered.
I bet you kicked yourself there.
So the next purchase that I made,
I
actually bought the tire and wheel coverage because I knew that I had experienced that before. And it was a cheap price to pay for that peace of mind for me.
Absolutely. Yep.
So there's a lot of different products that can be offered. We just kind of covered a few to protect your investments.
And once again, when you're going over these things with the finance manager, if you're unsure, just definitely ask. Like I said, it's worth really understanding what they're saying than maybe not and opting out and realizing, oh, shoot, I think I should have done that.
Yeah, you could have had that as an option.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. That's a very good point. Just making sure you're talking with them, understanding the product that they're offering. Before a no, sometimes maybe understanding it, you might say, like I did,
right,
I need that tire and wheel.
Right. Or vice versa.
Tires.
You may know that you don't need that extended warranty. I think it's really what is right for you and what fits your needs the best. So always ask, always try and, get the knowledge that you can.
So we're going to move on to, we are in the indirect lending program. And what Nicole and I have done is partnered up with dealerships to allow you to go in, sign a drive, make it easy for you. Dealers are open to a variety of different times. So, if they're open and we're not, we'll have an answer the next morning. But it allows a lot of freedom. And we found that that's a really good way to service our membership, to be able to offer that as an option for a customer member that wants to go in and actually purchase a car at the dealership, sign the information. And we're hoping that this conversation that we've done today has really kind of educated you a little bit more. So when you are going in, you're feeling really comfortable because we all know that buying a car is a daunting process.
Absolutely.
And with that, we will move to questions.
We're going to take a brief intermission to review the questions that have come in, and we'll be right back.
Okay, and we're back. We're kind of sifting through, trying to get some questions on hand, and we've been able to get some of these and hopefully try to clear up some questions you guys may have had. Again, we want to thank you for your participation tonight.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
The first question is to repeat the websites for the trade-in value estimates. I prefer a CarMax. That's actually going to CarMax. They look at your car. It might take 30 minutes, an hour, but they're going to give you a piece of paper that's good for 7 days that will tell you what exactly that car is worth at that moment, based on values of the auctions that are like vehicles of what you're selling. There's also Edmunds.com. That's ED, M as in Mary, O, N as in Nancy, DS.com. And that will also allow you to estimate your trade value. And then Kelly Blue Book is another famous one. It's KBB.com, K, B as in boy, B as in boy.com. So that's a very good question. The next question is, will I be able to get a car with bad credit? And I know we didn't talk about this, Nicole. You want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, the answer is yes. Yeah, most of the time, yes, I should say. The cool thing about being in 2020 is that there's kind of a place for everybody at the table. Just keep in mind that depending on where you lie on that the credit score, and you may have a higher interest. You may want to talk about putting more money down. There's usually a few more factors that go into it because they do see a little bit more risk. But with that being said, that doesn't mean you cannot do a loan. So I would say, yeah, absolutely. Work with the dealer, work with your banking institution if that's the way you're going to go. But yeah, I would say a lot of the times, 100%.
I would add too, if you know that some of the credit, and we talked about this briefly, that is going to come off that was bad credit is going to be coming off soon, it might be wise to wait a couple of months before once it comes off after that 7-year mark, because your scores are going to go higher. And we all know that the higher the score, the better the rate's going to be. So I would take that into consideration as well.
And to add to that, if you know that some of that's going to come off and you have a little bit of time, take a couple of months to establish a positive rapport with the credit reporting. It changes every single month. So, if something bad's coming off and you can replenish it with some positive stuff, in 3 months, you might have a pretty big jump in your score there.
That's a great point.
Yep.
This was an interesting one and I like it. Where can I find the list of dealerships you guys work with?
Oh, a great question.
And that's a direct impact on you and I.
Yeah, absolutely. And so where you can is you can go to our website, additionfi.com. And once you're there, there's going to be a whole bunch of tabs on the left side you can click on. And not a whole bunch, a few, but we would be under the personal. And once you open that, it'll be credit cards and loans. And it'll just list for you, you scroll down a little bit, all of our dealers that we partner with. And that, that list is, constantly updated if we add new dealers on. So that it'll list them there. It'll give you their address, phone numbers.
Yeah. And recently you've been able to get a lot of Volusia and Brevard dealerships. So we're kind of expanding that territory to allow more opportunity for other members to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Once again, I would say, regularly check because we're constantly adding and growing here at Addition Financial.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get approved from Addition prior to going to the dealer and having the doc to show them? Absolutely. And we encourage it. If you want to know what your rate is going to be, and we talked about that being one of the 3 points to know when going into a car deal, you're welcome to do an application online. You can call our member services department. They can take applications. You can go to your local branch and they can go ahead and get your application set in. We'll give you an answer. We'll give you a range of what we're able to do as far as the amount financing. And then you can take that down to the dealership so you kind of know exactly where you're going to be. And hopefully that will help you to be able to gauge what your payment's going to end up being based on the other factors of the price of the car and the trade value. All right, next question. Are there options for buying the car after you lease it? Answer is yes. Each lease that you do will have a residual value. And I'll be the first to admit, in my career, I've worked mainly with financing. So I'm giving my opinion based on my personal experiences. But if after 3 years, let's say you like that car, when you're purchasing a vehicle, the number one thing you want to know is what is the residual value? It's going to be the value based off of what they think this car is going to depreciate over those 3 years. And that will be the value that they're going to be looking at you to ask for you to pay for if you decide to purchase. You can also wash your hands of it if you'd like and move on to another car, whether it be a new lease or a new purchase. You still have that as an option. So, but to answer that question, yes, you can. We're going to go with the final question, which is what fees at dealerships are negotiable? What are set in stone? The answer to that question, typically when you talk about a fee, a dealer fee is typically a set in stone fee. They're not going to really be able to work with you on the fee. Knowing that they have a fee, they can possibly work with you on the price, but there's no guarantee that they will. That is a fee that they charge across the board for all their customers. So not charging it on one and charging it on another can affect you.
Right.
As far as other fees, it's not really the dealer's fee. You talk about a tag, you talk about title, you talk about tax. These are all things that are government that we don't really, the dealer doesn't really have any kind of control over. So when you talk about fees, I think the only one that you'd be referring to is the dealer fee. which in some cases they might be able to work with price, not the fee itself. However, there's no guarantee that they'll do that either. It's a fee that they charge to be able to do the deal, and almost all dealers have it.
Correct.
All right. Well, thank you, John and Nicole. This concludes our presentation tonight. Check your inboxes for an email containing a link to tonight's recording. Thank you all again for joining us. Have a great night.